of the difficulties experienced by parents who have children in preschool period, especially during the pandemic process. We are aware that you spend a lot of effort during the process to spend time with your child to ensure that they don't get bored to home, or to deliver the right contents to them and to support their development. It requires to answer questions like, does my child learn something from the phone in his hand? Or can my child access the right content? Is my child safe online? How can I contribute to my child's learning? Is my child exposed to too many screens, or how should I socialize with my child? How can I contribute to my child's development? Many questions have crossed your mind even more during the pandemic period. And these questions are now ready to be answered with us, Wikido. As Wikido, we create an interactive, social, safe and fun education platform for preschool children aged 3 to 6. And in this platform, our aim is to continues to develop and bring together all the branches of education and provide a useful experience to your child. We understand you and your concerns, and as Wikido, we think education is the most important factor in a person's life. With our experts, we are preparing an educational platform full of Montessori education and 5P competencies that should be gained in the preschool period. And in addition, to be a companion to your parents in our content and system. And we welcome to you to the Wikido family.
A long introduction.
And today, as the Wikido family, we are hosting our dear teacher from TED University, Dr.Seçil Yücelyiğit. And we will have a conversation with her about Esra will be with us, and she will help me. Firstly, Mrs. Yücelyiğit, would you introduce yourself?
Yes, sure. As you have already announced, my name is Seçil Yücelyiğit. I think I should start from my education. I graduated from Hacettepe University, Department of Mathematics, and I started my career as a software specialist, not as an academic, and I had experience in software development for 5 years. After that, I figured out that I have an interest in child education, so I decided to pursue on my higher education in child development and education. After I earned my degree, PhD degree, I started my academic career, and now I am, as you have already said, working as an assistant professor at TED University. And I'm giving lectures on early childhood mathematics and science education. I'm interested in STEM subjects and also coding, as you can guess.
Thank you. And let's restart the coding question. Firstly, what is coding and why is it important for preschoolers?
Coding refers to computer programming, and now the question turns into what is computer programming, I guess. Computer programming are the long lines that we tell the computers what to do by giving step-by-step instructions. It may sound weird because we are talking about preschool children, and at the same time we're talking about computer programming. It may sound weird, but I can get use of algorithms to explain how there is a connection. Algorithms are defined as set of sets that we give instructions to achieve a task. So we use them in our daily lives, even if we are not aware of it. And why do we educate children to become compatible with life issues? I mean, we want to equip children be ready to solve their problems, and all these activities, I mean, all these include algorithms in nature, by nature. So the answer is here, I guess. We introduce children coding as early as we can because we want them to be ready, to be competent enough to deal with daily problems, to learn to teach them how to organize their thinking, and another point that I really take serious is if we provide them opportunity to learn coding as early as we can deal with some gender stereotypes, because after some age, the children start thinking that, especially girls, I'm not good at computers. Boys are more better at computers or engineering and etc. But if we can provide it earlier, I think we can give an end to those stereotypes. I believe so. So that's why we introduce coding as early as we can.
Thank you.
And our second question is, which developmental areas does coding affect?
When we search the literature about the effects of coding, we see that most of them emphasize the cognitive development part, because coding requires some skills like number sense, spatial sense, or reasoning or problem solving, which are basically the cognitive developmental, which are related to cognitive developmental areas. But I think this, if we say that it is only related to the cognitive development, we look from a narrow perspective. We just limit the effects because, how can I express it? Let me give the example. Think of a group of children participating in a coding activity. They come together, let's say, to design a game or to create their own stories, interactive stories with coding. You see that they engage in getting in participation with the others. We see their collaboration. We see them learning what they have done up to now. They teach each other what they are trying to achieve, and etc. So we can say that it also has an effect on social development. Or another example, with coding, we give children opportunities to make their own stories, to create their own stories. And if the child reflects on his or her emotions in the story, we can make a relation between the emotional development as well. So instead of saying that it is mostly related to cognitive development, I prefer saying it depends on how you get use of coding. So it may involve all the developmental areas, if you ask me.
Thank you. As you said that all developmental areas are important for coding, and there are some arguments about coding that are coding negatively affects children's creativity. What do you think about this?
I think the opposite way. I don't think it kills the creativity. Instead, it flourishes the creativity, I believe, because as I try to give the examples, by coding, by introducing coding, we give a tool to the child. Actually, we open a door, and the door opens to a wide area that the child can make their own stories. Creating stories doesn't kill creativity. It flourishes the creativity. Or they can design their own games. They set the rules. They think, they use their imagination to achieve these goals. So we cannot talk about killing creativity, I guess. As I said before, I think the opposite. It supports the creativity.
Thank you.
You give also some examples about that, but also I want to ask that, can we design games related to coding at home?
Yes, certainly. That's what early childhood coding is about, actually. One way is designing games. The children can decide on the rules and may pick some characters for their games and then write the codes. For sure, not by writing in what we know computer programming, but using graphical blocks. And they can make their own games. One way to get use of coding in early childhood is designing games. And as I mentioned before, they can also create stories, interactive stories. Or another way to use is to produce art pieces, for example, collage or some other types of art.
Yes, thank you. And which steps should we follow when starting coding?
Okay, this is a very important question, I guess, because we cannot do it without planning. The first thing we should take into consideration is the developmental stage of the child that we are participating in this process, in coding process. Because as I said, it requires some spatial skills or number sense, or we expect the child to be comfortable using the directional words and make some reasoning and etc. If we agree that the child is ready for that, this is regardless of the age. Actually, it may be 3 years old for some child, or for some other, it may be 4 years old. If we decide that he or she is ready, the first thing we need to do is, I think, to start with kinesthetic activities. I mean, we do not start with computers, or we do not even start with screens for preschool age, for coding. We just give an idea about what coding is, what giving instruction, and for the computer, how it gets the instruction and does what is expected. So, for example, tangible example can be, we can use tapes on the platform, on a smooth platform. It may be the classroom platform. We can prepare a grid and we can ask the child to become a robot, let's say, because their imagination is wonderful at these times. And so we can ask the other friends to give instructions to the one who became robot. Can I make it clear? I don't know. Maybe you can direct me with your questions here. And the first thing, as I said, we need to begin with is games like this. I mean, using their own bodies, getting involved in their bodies to the process. After this, we can continue with desk type games. We can get use of the figures, their toy figures or toy robots, and we can help them understand what giving instruction and what taking that instruction means. So after these steps, we can continue with graphical blocks on computers or on screen. So there are certainly some steps to follow. I can say that.
You said that teaching coding depends on the children, but if we talk generally, when children should start coding?
It's regardless of their age, but I can say in general that the early childhood periods, I mean the preschool years, are the time when they learn those directional words, or when they get the number sense. So these are the critical skills that we need for starting coding. I can say that we can work with 3 to 4 year olds, and there are many studies as the participants 3 to 4 year olds, and they can achieve this goal. So it depends on the child again. But we can start by 3 and 4 years old.
Thank you. And this is our last question. Are there any apps or websites you can recommend for coding?
Yes, there are many for coding in general, but most of them target the older children starting from the elementary level. But the ones for targeting especially the preschool period are, the first one that comes to my mind is Scratch Junior. It is developed by a group of researchers from MIT lab, and I also get use of it in my program, as you already know. The first one I can recommend is Scratch Junior. There are alternatives for that, like Tinker or Code.org also includes the preschool period. I can also recommend them. And the good part is all of these platforms include some guidelines or some curriculums how to get use from those programs, it also includes. So I can recommend them confidently.
Thank you. And before we end our recording, we would like to thank our dear teacher, Seçil Yücelyiğit, for her contribution. And as the Wikido family, we are very pleased to welcome you. Thanks for everything.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
I also thank my teammates Esra and Elif for their help. Thank you for listening to us also.